It's been a very interesting offseason for the Minnesota Vikings with, the whole Jordan Addison deal, losing Kirk Cousins, re-signing Justin Jefferson, drafting our rookie, potential future of the franchise at quarterback JJ McCarthy, and obviously losing one of our draft picks, fourth round draft pick, Kyrie Jackson, to just a very unfortunate situation, a sad situation. But there's also been a lot of trade rumors surrounding the Vikings. Okay. We just heard Brandon Ayuk request a trade yesterday from the San Francisco 49ers. I was going to talk about that. However, it seems as if San Francisco, well, actually, it doesn't seem as if they're not going to trade him. Okay. They have all the leverage or they have all the leverage over Brandon Ayuk. They still have two franchise tags they can use on Brandon Ayuk to keep him there for the next 2 years, potentially 3 years, and yada, yada, yada. So I decided to pivot and talk about something where not only myself, but other Vikings creators and other Vikings fans have been talking about, at least quite a bit from what I have seen. Marshon Lattimore, cornerback for the New Orleans Saints, seems to be a hot topic around the Vikings organization as a potential trade target. And I got to say, I'd be all for it. Look, the cornerback position has not been the greatest for the Minnesota Vikings the past couple of seasons. We've tried to address it during the draft. We have, last year's draft pick, Mekhi Blackman, has been playing some pretty good ball. Byron Murphy still on the team. We got him from Arizona. I can't remember if that was I think that was via, it was either trade or free agency. Can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to go look back. But we have two dogs, right? But we could add some more depth to that position because after those two, you have a Caleb Evans who is decent, right? He's not terrible by any means, but he's not the greatest thing in the world. Andrew Booth Jr., who we drafted high in a couple years ago, I think it was like the third round. He hasn't really panned out to be anything. And I think there's a couple others. So the Vikings are looking to add more cornerback depth. And is Marshon Lattimore a potential solution to that problem? Well, let's dive into it a little bit further, talking about the cap space and see if this is a plausible, trade rumor or something that could actually happen in the future. So, shout out SB Nation, the Daily Norseman, for putting this together for us. Basically, it says the over the cap list, the Minnesota Vikings with just a shade over $26 million in cap space as we prepare for camp to open in just under, well, this is a couple weeks ago, so this has already been talked about, but just basically under a couple days. Training camp starts this Sunday. Okay, so we have a little bit of wiggle room to work with, talking about the cap, anyways. Now, with free agency largely picked up over by the point of the summer, though not entirely without players who can help a team, might it make sense for the Vikings to swing a deal to use up some of that cap space? Well, it's a complicated proposition. Rolling over the cap space into 2025, when the Vikings are expected to be more of a threat in the NFC North, makes quite a bit of sense. Okay, especially if we're looking towards the future, especially with the new potential face of the franchise and JJ McCarthy, who we just drafted in the first round with the 10th overall pick. But if the Vikings want to shoot for the moon, okay, Bleacher Report's Ryan Fowler suggests that they call up the Saints to make a deal for cornerback Marshon Lattimore. Now, the Saints, who are perpetually in salary cap hell, are projected to be nearly $90 million over the cap next offseason. I believe they were like $86 million over the cap this offseason. So how much more time are they going to want to be in that salary cap hell, so to say? And look, they would potentially be looking to unload, Lattimore to help clear up some of that cap space, which makes a lot of sense for not only the Saints, but could make sense for the Minnesota Vikings. Where things get a little messy is Lattimore's cap hit, which is just under $15 million this season, but averages $30 million over the two subsequent seasons. Okay. Now, the Vikings are projected to be are projected to be $54 million and change under the cap a year from now, and $123 million the year after that, which is 12th most in the NFL, as about a $20 million jump in the cap is forecasting for what it's worth. So basically, they're just forecasting what the salary cap might look like 2 years from now and saying this is how much they would have over the cap space, which is pretty darn good. $123 million over the cap. I'll take that. And we could sign a lot of players for that type of money. Now, would it make sense to put Lattimore in that equation? Well, Lattimore turned 28 in May and has registered at least one interception in each of his 7 NFL seasons, multiple picks in 4 of those seasons. Now he graded out at 69.1. It's not the greatest, grade from Pro Football Focus, but their coverage grades last season, which ranked 46th among qualified corners and behind just one Viking, Mekhi Blackman. So he would be a great third option, okay? Even if we have to move somebody to the nickel position or move Byron Murphy inside, Marshon Lattimore should be able to cover the outside receiver, or at least one of the outside receivers, as just kind of at least a better option than what we have currently on the depth chart. Now, among corners who played last season, at least 400 coverage snaps last season, okay? Lattimore ranked 25th with an opponent's reception percentage of just 58.7%. So half the time, the receiver's probably going to come down with the ball, which doesn't seem great. But, as a third string corner on a team, I think that's okay. Now, Lattimore also had 29 tackles on pass plays and just missed 2 of those. Okay, 29 tackles. That means he had 31 chances to tackle players on pass plays and only missed 2 of those. Now, only Christian Benford and Jalen Jones missed fewer, which means they probably only missed 1 tackle. But I think this would be a very liable option for the Vikings to go out and potentially look at a trade, help the Saints clear up some cap space, add some more depth in the cornerback room for our team to maybe, make a deeper run this season, maybe, help the record out a little bit. But Marshon Lattimore to the Minnesota Vikings, for me, would make sense if we can make it work money-wise, if that makes sense for you guys out there. I think we have enough money to do that, especially even after the Justin Jefferson deal. I'm sure we'd have to work something out. We'd have to, trade a player over there. A lot of people are saying Jordan Addison after his, couple arrests that he's had. It's not the greatest look in the world, but the Minnesota Vikings know how to deal with that, a.k.a. Chris Carter back in the day had some issues, came to the Minnesota Vikings and completely changed his life around. So maybe Jordan Addison just needs to talk to him, or maybe, he just has to have a coming to God moment, if you will. I have no idea, but Marshon Lattimore to the Minnesota Vikings would make sense. I want to hear from you guys. What would you like the Minnesota Vikings to do before training camp or even during training camp? Do you want us to trade for somebody? Who would you want us to trade for? Whether it's Brandon Ayuk, Marshon Lattimore, or other players you have in mind, or is there other free agents out there that you would want us to take a look at and maybe go out and sign one of those guys? I have no idea. I want to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. Also, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much, much appreciated. Have a great rest of the night, folks, and Skull Vikes.